What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 651 of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast Hot Tags of the Week. I am not your host this week, Tony Mango, because I am passing this week's duties off to, thankfully, my usual co-hosts, my buddies, my rocks. Got Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
And Robert DeFelice.
Hello.
I am going to give us some quick plugs, though, before we get started here. Remember from everybody, chat it up in the Discord. Keep in mind these marketplace stuff that we have, Redbubble and TeePublic for the merchandise. That's not a good word to say right now. The Darkcast stuff, the Patreon, that you can find all that on the YouTube channel membership as well. Help us out on the monetary side of things through those avenues or the thanks button. And of course, keep in mind that there are free ways for you to help us out too. Hit that like button. I'd really love to see more of those likes. Kind of is discouraging when I see, a bunch of people clicking on a video and I see one like and then one dislike. I don't know who these people are that are disliking it, but you can kindly F off. But, totally free to make sure that you are subscribed. Ring the notification bell as well. Still not sure if I'm going to be doing the post show for King and Queen of the Ring tomorrow and or Double or Nothing. It'll depend on how my mouth is healed after this wisdom teeth thing. I might be chiming in during this podcast here and there, but mostly this is going to be covered by Rob and Callum. So just wanted to remind everybody about this marketplace stuff that's out there and tell you all to behave in the comment section below. And I'm going to pass this off to these guys that are thankfully going to run in the shop today. So take it away, guys.
Okay, so we're now in charge. Tony's not even listening, so we can just get on with stuff. Yeah, he's not having to. We're in control now, so that's good. All right, so where are we going to start? So let's start with some bad news, which is there's a lot of injuries going around, and that's nothing new this year or this last year and a half. 2 years. It feels like there's been just a lot of injuries affecting both promotions right now, both major promotions and also a promotion outside of it, which we'll also talk about. But we learnt earlier, last week, but then it's we haven't really spoken about it in great detail about Ivar. Now it's revealed put on Twitter, didn't disclose the actual nature of his injury, but said that he is suffering from a serious injury. Yes, it's going to be him out for a while, but he hasn't yet decided kind of what route he's going to take, whether he needs to go through surgery, whether it can be dealt with through rehab. Essentially, it's just bad news because Ivar's been been one of the kind of lower level stars of Raw, and now was recently been popping up in NXT, doing a little bit of a North American Championship rivalry with Obafemi. So it's a shame that this good run that he's been on, especially considering the fact that he was only kind of put into this position because his tag team partner is out with a long-term injury as well. It's just a bit of a shame that it's had to come to a sudden stop like this.
Yeah, it really is unfortunate, and honestly, I just hope that he's able to make a full recovery and return to action, because you never want to see someone's career get cut short by injuries. I think it is a shame. I think he was doing some of his finest work in WWE. They were seeing the value in him as a performer, and hopefully when he comes back, either Eric's back and they can have a great run as a team, or they can pivot to him as a singles again and he can continue on his great run.
Outside of Ivar, there's also been some on the AEW side of things. We've now shed a little bit more light into where Wheeler Yuta has been, with I feel like Elite Fightful reporting that he's currently dealing with concussion symptoms, which when he's been out for a considerable number of months now. I think the last time that he wrestled was back in January or even late last year. The fact that it's been going on for this much longer with him experiencing concussion symptoms is not a good sign, and hopefully that isn't a premature ending to his career. Obviously, definitely don't want to see a premature ending to his career, but it's hopefully he can resolve those issues soon. Because that sucks in many different ways.
It absolutely does, and I'm going to do something I rarely do, and I'm going to take credit for this one because I genuinely believe that the only reason this was asked about is because I kind of put on Twitter, I'm like, where is Wheeler? No one's saying anything. No one's doing anything. He hasn't wrestled since the January 11 episode of Rampage, I believe, and he's just gone. And with that, he took the Ring of Honor Pure Championship, and the amount of just silence on questions about this was staggering to me. So finally, Sean did ask, and he was told concussion symptoms. Obviously, when you hear these words in wrestling, you get, flashbacks to Daniel Bryan in WWE, and I hope it's nowhere near that bad. I hope he's able to heal up. I hope he's going to come back soon. And I hope that Tony Khan announces what the hell they're doing with the Ring of Honor Pure Championship at some point between now and Death Before Dishonor.
Yeah, I think if Yuta isn't back and able to compete by that point in time, I think they'd probably have to consider doing some kind of like mini tournament, or in order to crown if not to crown the vacant champion, to at least install an interim champion, because we know AEW and Ring of Honor by extension have done that in the past. But yeah, it's just pretty disheartening. I think a lot of the reason for the secrecy is just because the term concussion has a lot of is a weighty term in today's like wrestling landscape, and so they're probably trying to conceal that information as much as possible, which is in a way understandable, but also it's at least good to know that what the rationale is behind it is nothing more. I'd say nothing more serious than that, but it could be worse, I imagine. And then we also have the news of Eddie Kingston needs surgery. I believe torn meniscus and ACL.
Torn meniscus and an ACL.
Yeah,
needs surgery
out until 2025.
And I believe the most recent report was potentially May of 2025.
I mean, that can be a year-long injury, ACL. So
that's awful. Yeah, I mean, and thoughts to him, because this dude was on a great run, and now he's out of action for a long time. And I'm sure, he's been very open and honest about mental health struggles, and being on the shelf like that can take a toll on your mental health. So best wishes to him, and hopefully he comes back stronger than ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a way, in terms of just a performance standpoint and a character standpoint, this has probably been the strongest year, 18 months of Kingston's entire career. In terms of just being in AEW, winning multiple championships, being the first ever Continental Crown champion, probably the only ever Continental Crown, because I doubt they'll unify all three titles under one banner moving forward as well. But in a way, obviously, this obviously sucks, and wishing all the best for Kingston, because he's been one of the bright sparks for AEW ever since he joined the company. But in a way, there is, at least you can see some element of silver lining. Hopefully he gets some sort of involvement behind the scenes, because he has a great mind for the business, and he can help people out in terms of their promos and other sides of the business, which he hopefully can do in some kind of semi-producer role. Hopefully they keep him involved, keep him engaged with the products, so he's not just cut away while he's recovering and doing rehab on the injury. But then it also means that after, there might have been at least an element of fatigue surrounding Kingston, because he had been so heavily featured, he had won those titles, and now he gets to take some time off, think about different things, and he comes back and he's going to be one of the biggest stars in the company once he returns, because everyone will be so happy to see him return and see what he can do afterwards. And hopefully it doesn't it's a serious injury, and hopefully it doesn't have to, but he's never been a guy who's been super reliant on speed and agility and everything like that, so I don't think it should impact his wrestling style that much. But you never know when it comes to these things, but hopefully he comes back as good as ever.
Yeah, agreed. And again, just really thinking about him, because being on the sidelines isn't great. And we're going to talk about somebody later who has already opened up about how difficult it's been for him.
Yeah, so the other kind of big injury that I've got so far is, and this one is kind of at the moment outside of WWE, but very much maybe will be in WWE or has been a problem for WWE. And this was the debut of the Marigold promotion over in Japan, the new Joshi promotion led by former Stardom president Rossi Ogawa. And they had their first show. It was all yellow, bright, and everything. According by their records, at the very least, they said that it was the second biggest, most viewed show to be on Wrestle Universe.
I did see that. What was the first?
I believe it was some. I can't remember the exact name. I think it was a show from 2022. I know that. I think it was a big, like, unified, like, cyber fight thing, including things from like Noah and DDT and all of that stuff. So it was kind of like a collaboration show, like Forbidden Door, but for like the Japanese promotions under the Cyber Fight banner. And but in the main event of that show, which was a tag team match between Giulia and Utami Hayashishita against Sarai and, I need to get this right, I believe it's Bozilla.
Okay.
Essentially, she's a Godzilla. She's meant to be like this Godzilla-esque wrestler because she's like 5'11", and all the other women are about 5'2". So that's kind of.
I love it. Okay.
So she's like the new. She's the Nia Jax of that promotion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And based by, I haven't actually watched the match, but based by the accounts I read a bit, she wrestles like Nia Jax as well, if not worse. If not worse, yeah.
Oh,
so,
no.
So we'll have to see what the future holds for Bozilla. But for what the future holds for Giulia is a bit of rehab and a cast on her wrist for a few months at least, because apparently she sustained a wrist fracture in that match. Yeah, and that's with the reports suggesting that she was going to be part of the announced new class of people to join NXT in the near future. It feels like this could set back her debut in the company a bit. And obviously she's still doing stuff for Marigold as well moving forward, but yeah, I don't know. I don't believe it's been reported how long the injury should keep her out of action for, but you'd imagine wrist fracture, probably a little while at the very least. Or she might just wrestle with a giant cast on, who knows? She's a bit crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that she should still be on track to make her, debut for NXT. She's still doing the match at this point against Sarai. I think it sucks. Obviously, this is the risk you run. We were talking about Kingston, talking about Giulia. This is the risk you run with having everybody kind of starting to play nice with each other and having wrestlers work for other promotions. You might have an injury on your hands that you weren't expecting. But I do think that this won't deter her NXT debut for too long.
Anything you want to add about any of the injuries, Tony, or are you good?
It always sucks to hear that anybody's injured, and especially when it comes to something like Giulia just being this like linchpin for a company, and they immediately gets injured for them, so that sucks for them. But you gotta hope that everybody comes back better than before. I saw one thing that was pretty funny, which I'll give a shout out to Waco in my group chat with him. He was saying that everybody keeps coming back really jacked, like AJ Styles. And then he's like, I kind of want Eddie Kingston to come back in worse shape just to can be the total opposite of that.
Yeah.
But, like I was saying with the whole mental health thing, that's an interesting angle you could play with. If he really just on sidelines lets himself go, and then he has to come back and, really earn that top spot again. I do think that both Kingston and Giulia will eventually be world champions in their respective promotions. And maybe even by the time we're having a conversation like this next year, I think Giulia is at least on top of NXT, if not one of the main rosters. And I think Kingston should, at some point in 2025, become AEW world champion.
But then speaking, as you alluded to earlier, somebody that has been out for a very long time due to injury and may unfortunately never be in a wrestling ring again, There is some good news for Big E, and he will be back on television screens soon, but not in the manner in which we either expected and potentially hoped. He's earned a role in the new Peacock comedy Laid. So obviously, I don't know anything about this. I don't subscribe to Peacock. Won't probably never watch this show, but this is apparently the synopsis of Laid. Laid follows a woman who finds out her former lovers are dying in unusual ways and must go back through her sex timeline to confront her past to move forward. It's described as a fucked up rom-com where the answer to why can't I find love, is there something wrong with me, is a resounding yes there is, the problem is definitely you.
Oh, this sounds like required viewing for yours truly. I think this is perfect for Big E. If you've ever heard Big E talk about love, I know he is currently in a happy relationship, but if you heard talk about love beforehand, he was pretty on the downside about things, and honestly, I think this would be very funny, at least his parts. I'm assuming he's one of the exes that dies in a very fucked up manner, and it'll be interesting to see if he transitions to acting coming out of this. This is obviously on Peacock, the WWE ties there. This is also being produced by Sally Bradford McKenna and Nick Khan's sister, almost said Tony, Nankatch Khan, and there's also some Young Rock people involved on this. Yeah, actually, she would do the Young Rock person because she helped produce Young Rock. So there's that. I can imagine this is at least good for Big E. He gets his feet wet in acting. He's a very funny man. I hope nothing but the best for him. He got a really shitty deal with what I'm beginning to think more and more is the end of his career.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to. It's been a very long time, and by all accounts, that he's been very kind of open about the reports that he's received from like medical staff and saying like, yeah, it's probably not good, but I'm happy and healthy, and so he seems to be taking it in stride. And hope if this does go well, this could open a whole new avenue up to him. And would wish nothing more for the guy than to find another niche if he can no longer do the thing that he loved doing in the past.
Just to see if this jars any memories for mostly you, Callum, but Tony, if you want to chime in, go ahead. Apparently, Khan also has credits from Fresh Off the Boat and Don't Trust to Be in Apartment 23, and that's where she's previously worked with McKenna, and McKenna has credits for shows like Will and Grace and The Goldbergs. Do any of these shows mean anything to you, Callum?
I know of them.
Okay,
I've never watched any of them. I know of Will and Grace, and I know of The Goldbergs, but then I can't say that they're required viewing for me.
Will and Grace was funny for a while. Goldberg's, I've heard that it was like a great series, and I could never get into it. But I'm genuinely excited to see where this goes, and I hope that it works out well for all involved.
I only know of the Goldbergs because one of the supporting cast before it was cancelled. I think it was cancelled like last year. But one of the supporting cast is a member of Smosh. So I watch Smosh, and so
I also watch a great deal of Smosh.
Yeah, so it's like they reference that occasionally because I think it was Shane Top who played I can't what was his character's name? He was yeah.
Go ahead.
Not that this is anybody wrestling related, but then again, we're kind of doing the thing that Tony would do in most shows, just taking off, of course, a little bit. Matt Bradley, that was his name.
By the way, shout out to Shane, recently married. Shout out.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that as well now.
Yeah,
we're going to move on to that.
Very, very happy for all the short-knee conspiracy theorists that turned out to be true.
Yeah, also going down the aisle as of this week were Ruby Soho and Angelo Parker. Obviously on-screen couple on AEW TV recently announced that Ruby Soho is pregnant, so obviously congratulations to that, and obviously congratulations to the couple on their wedding, and many happy returns to them.
They seem like a really just down-to-earth couple, and their wedding looked like a good time. I saw a reunited Riot Squad and some photos. John Silver and Anna Jay reenacted their famous meme. I thought that was fantastic. And yeah, they're very happy for them. Hope everything works out for them. Always love seeing happy endings like this.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a couple of photos. The one that stood out to me is that they did like a group photo with a lot of the AEW women's wrestlers together just at the wedding, and they put Toni Storm in sepia tone, which was fantastic.
Yeah, because she's timeless.
Yeah,
even in real life.
Yeah, that was a nice touch. Whoever edited that was kudos to you. But yeah, congratulations to them. Always good to see a bit of good news after the injury talk we had earlier. Now let's do some another Tony. I guess the Tony trademark is talking about WWE trademarks and AEW trademarks. So let's talk about a new WWE trademark for the term WWE Vault. And I'm saying vault as in VAULT, what you would open to put money in a bank, not vault as in electricity, because they already have speed for that. Or that would be a better name for WWE Speed, WWE Vault instead. But apparently, at least by accounts, it's going to be for a new series of some kind. What do you think would be in the WWE Vault?
I think that this will be a series that kind of just goes through the random memorabilia they have, kind of like what they're going through for the Most Wanted Treasure stuff. This could be like a YouTube short for that. That's what I'm thinking.
The big reveal is going to be what was in that lockbox.
The good old lockbox.
I was going to say, they probably don't want to open Vince McMahon's vault and see what's in there.
Yeah, no, I think the lockbox has been thrown in the river.
But I would presume that WWE Vault is going to be about some hidden clips or backstage clips or footage from behind the scenes WWE from decades and years past that haven't come to light or aren't widely known about. And they're going to be dug up and showcased as like this was an interesting thing that happened, because they're a lot more open now to looking at things from behind the curtain than they would have been at the time that those things would have been filmed.
See, I like that idea, but that sounds too good to be true. So I'm just
as long as
it doesn't happen.
Well, I'm just hoping it's not. I assume that it wouldn't just be a load of clips of people snorting coke behind the scenes or whatever, or along those lines. But I imagine there's probably a lot of video footage of that being taken at that point in time. It's only that we don't have the. They didn't have to worry about the cloud being hacked when they were doing that. They just need to put it on their VHS tapes or something. So yeah, I imagine they'll be able to find some interesting little clips, maybe with like the Undertaker out of character and stuff of that ilk, that they can just put out. Because I don't know, because the other ideas, like, digging into like the thing that you described sounds way too much like Most Wanted Treasures. It feels like it would just be like a rehash of that. I don't know if it would just be going through and like digging out old matches. That's like fine, but you've got, well, at least for the time being, you've got Peacock for that. I imagine eventually you'll have Netflix for that as well. But yeah, I can't think what else you would necessarily do for it, unless it's some kind of like, I don't know, people like you invite wrestlers on for an interview segment thing, and they put things into their like WWE Vault, like memories from their career that they're going to keep into, like they're going to store away in their own personal private vault.
That's actually also a really great idea. I hope that they've put an iota of thought into this, and
it's like a work in marketing or something.
Yeah, maybe. And I hope that they do any of this and not just, hey, this is what we're calling the full matches that we release on YouTube now. So hopefully it's not that.
I would assume with a name like WWE Vault and the lackluster nature of most of their extraneous programming, this is going to be nothing but here's a clip of something from the past that we're showing you from the WWE Vault. And it'll be like, we're going to crack open the WWE Vault and show you this footage of the gobbledygooker. There you go. And that'll be pretty much it.
I mean, that's the realistic approach to take.
Yeah, but that's also depressing. Boo!
But who knows? This could just be a thing where WWE wrestlers jump over things.
Yeah. The Olympics
are very different type of vault, yeah.
The Olympics are coming.
Yeah.
Ricochet's going to be great at that.
Yeah.
He's great at speed.
Shame they're throwing Reggie off then, because he really would have shined at that point.
That is true.
A few other bits of notes from WWE side of things. So there's been reports going out that WWE and UFC are going to be merging their live events teams. So, that's part of that consolidation approach of the TKO side of things. So it's nothing unexpected. It seems like they've been, over the course of the last year and a half, ever since the merger took place, they've been slowly reaching that point where they're both basically operating with the same teams. I think it probably is illustrated by the fact that you've got the new NXT show coming up that's going to be taking place in the UFC training center, and there's just a lot of synergy and collaboration, and this is just another example of it. And it's also, most importantly, it's all because of this a giant cost cutting measure. So understandable in that regard.
Yeah, and I know that this was coming and we can't be too down about it, but I also feel like merging live events staff like this, UFC and WWE are two different animals in a lot of ways. Wouldn't it be better to have some separation?
Well, they're two different animals now, but maybe they're becoming one unified animal soon. I mean, who knows? There seems to be, at least with that, we have to see what the presentation of this NXT show is going to look like in this slightly smaller looking arena. Like, how is it going to all kind of blend together? Is there now going to be a point where UFC and WWE look fairly similar, maybe just two different shades of the same color almost?
I wouldn't want that.
No, I wouldn't either, but that's just how just taking on the realistic downtrodden approach of things, that's probably how things go in this sort of this age of synergy and collaboration and merger and all this stuff. That's typically how things eventually go.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. It's just like we keep saying, just because it's realistic doesn't mean it's good.
Outside of that, then, in terms of other WWE kind of business related news, they've announced that they're going to be doing 3 shows in Japan in July of this year. I believe it's 25th, 26th, and 27th of July. And this is interesting for a couple of reasons. One, it's the first time they've been in Japan, back to Japan since the pandemic. This is before, years before the pandemic. So apparently they were meant to go to Japan in 2020. But obviously the pandemic stopped that, and then Japan closed up for way longer than pretty much every other country in the world. And then now they're coming back, so for the first time in 2024. But it's also interesting, based on what we discussed last week in the on the hot tags, about how Cyberfight have a new president, and that president is interested in strengthening the relationship between the Cyberfight collective of promotions and WWE. So this could potentially be another step towards that relationship between both sides. What do you think we'll see from WWE going back to Japan?
I think we will probably see... This is where you'll get the Giulia official announcement. I think this is where you get Io or Kyrie on a Marigold show. Or at least really planting the seeds for it. And I think this could also possibly be WWE scouting some talent, maybe doing a tryout there with some Noah talent, some DDT talent, and maybe even some Tokyo Joshi Pro talent. I don't know. I know they're on the same channel, but I don't know what the relationship is there between TJPW and Marigold. I think you're going to see a lot of that. Maybe you get some Shinsuke Nakamura in some main events that will probably be left to the vault. But I think this is good for them. And it's crazy to think about the last time they were in Japan was when Triple H was still wrestling and he was teaming up with AJ and the OC and stuff. That, to me, is the most shocking thing, that they've just been away from Japan for that long.
I'm just checking the dates to see. So the 25th is a Thursday, the 26th is a Friday, and the 27th is a Saturday. So there is, one of them's on a Friday. So there is a potential that Friday show, it means that SmackDown's going to emanate from Japan. Either that or they... I mean, I would like that as well, because the last time they did a a live show. I believe they did an episode of Raw and SmackDown from Japan in like 2005, I think. Like that was back because I remember that one because Tajiri came out to the biggest pop he ever received on a WWE show, unsurprisingly. And then they also did a Triple H versus Edge world title match.
I don't want to get the date too wrong. I want to say it was February 10th. It was Triple H, Edge, Benoit, and Jericho in a submission match. And as you mentioned, Tajiri getting a fantastic pop. And that was really fun. Like, I always enjoyed seeing the overseas crowd, even back then. And the Japanese audience is so different in any way, you know?
It's, the people they've announced, the people that they've used to kind of promote the show, or at least the superstars they've listed. So they've listed Cody Rhodes, unsurprisingly. Shinsuke Nakamura, also unsurprisingly. Drew McIntyre, which is obviously re-signed now, so there's no issue there in that regard. Bobby Lashley, and then the 3 Japanese members of Damage Control, Io Sky, Asuka, and Kairi Sane. Which is, you know, you promote your major Japanese talent on this thing, and then some of your bigger stars. And so, but it's interesting, like, it's a cross mix of Raw and SmackDown people, predominantly Raw inside of all Damage Control and Raw, Drew McIntyre's and Raw. I have no idea what brand Shinsuke Nakamura is on.
Shinsuke Nakamura was recently drafted back to SmackDown.
Okay, good for him. Bobby's on SmackDown and Cody's on SmackDown, obviously.
So yeah, they might be just running SmackDown. They might just do, and they've done a lot of these at the house shows lately. They might just do Cody versus Shinsuke for the WWE title.
But, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. But the thing that there is a mix of SmackDown and Raw ones makes it feel like, okay, maybe some of them are Raw shows, some of them are SmackDown shows. Maybe they do SmackDown on the Friday, but then the other ones also have some Raw superstars on it, or maybe they just take some Raw superstars and they make it a SmackDown tour, or maybe they just pre-record SmackDown the week beforehand and they just do these things instead of doing a live show.
That's true. There is always that possibility. But I think that there's some interesting things you could do, like AJ Styles is on SmackDown, and we're going to talk about SmackDown spoilers in a little bit, but you could build to something nice for AJ Styles on this show, who had arguably the best run of his career in Japan.
Oh yeah, you should. They would be wise to put either their Japanese talent front and center, as well as people that have a history of working in Japan in it. So yeah, that's like we'll see what that comes in, if there's any kind of anything beyond just them going to Japan and just performing in front of their fans there, or whether there is a kind of wider narrative involving all the cyber fight stuff. Speaking of like dates of shows, All Out 2024 has been pushed back a week. To originally it was going to take place on, as it typically has done, on Labor Day weekend on the 1st of September. It's now been pushed back to the 7th of September. Again, a couple of interesting things about this. First of all, it's gone from a Sunday to a Saturday, which appears to be in line with a lot of what the later year AEW stuff is doing, which is they're no longer doing shows on Saturday in the second half of this year. They're pretty much moving directly back to Saturdays, which might be in line with what WWE has kind of announced, alluded to, let's say, in the past, about the fact that in the future it's going to be UFC doing stuff on Saturday and then WWE doing stuff on Sunday, whereas WWE has traditionally been doing a lot of Saturday shows. They're now going to be doing potentially moving back to Sunday stuff instead. So AEW might be slotting in back into the Saturday stuff, which is, as a English fan, especially an English fan of AEW, that is far, far better for me to have the shows on Saturday instead.
I personally, this is neither here nor there for anyone but me. I just don't like it because that means that gotta be up doing the press conference and then work the Sunday. But I love this. I think it's fair that they're moving the show back so that they're not too close to All In. You know, Tony said that he did get some great feedback from fans about that, so they're listening to the fans and pushing it back a little bit. It is sad that it's no longer on Labor Day weekend, but maybe that's indicative of some other things changing soon. Maybe the next Double or Nothing won't be in Vegas. For some reason, there's a lot of rumors about that. And
I think that would be smart.
Yeah, but I think it's like fair. It's like, okay, where you're going to be.
Yeah, but you can wear out the same market if you've been there for too long. This is the 5th year. They're not doing particularly well in terms of ticket sales in Vegas right now. So I think that there's a good possibility they move out of Vegas for the next Double or Nothing show. But in terms of the Labor Day weekend, I think that I can understand the rationale of wanting to increase the time between All In and All Out, so there's a bit more time to build up the matches and build up the card. But it is only another week. It's only one more episode of Dynamite and Collision and Rampage in between that. And then also you come in the issue of, well, if it was Labor Day weekend, a lot more people could travel into the city because they know they're going to be there for a long weekend. There's not as much of a rush to get back. If you move it to a national holiday weekend, it means that realistically you're only appealing to the local market because not as many people are going to be willing to travel in to the city to do this stuff. And I know it's Chicago, and Chicago's a big kind of a ground for them. That's where they have some of their biggest events taking place there. But I just feel that the benefits of the additional time to build up the next show are not parallel to the losses of that weekend and having that more time and energy for people to come there.
I agree. And I think ultimately this is going to prove to be better because also we even talked about this, and this is less of an issue for you as a non-American, but I've been talking to people firsthand, and they're really starting to feel the $50. Like with AEW adding more shows, these pay-per-views are really beginning to add up.
Does the extra week counteract that enough?
Potentially.
That still feels like it's too close together for people wanting to buy both shows.
But you got to think about it. If you're getting paid every other week, this might just be...
Is that how it works over there? Do people get paid? Do people get paid every other week in that? Is that how it works?
Hold on. Now we gotta have a conversation. How does it work over there?
We pretty much get paid like monthly. That's kind of how our stuff typically works. If you're getting like more of an office job, and if you're getting paid like at a more like retail-y job and stuff like that, then it's probably. I wouldn't know. I've never worked in retail, so I can't really say that with any kind of real confidence. But it feels a bit odd, just like that. Okay, 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, that feels odd.
Yeah, but it's typically you get paid every other week here, unless you're like on a specific plan where it's just we'll pay you monthly, like you're a freelancer or something. But that could be the difference for some people in terms of the pay-per-view buys. So I think it's a good idea overall, even if I think it sucks for people who were like definitely already bought the plane ticket for Chicago Labor Day weekend because that's what we do. That is where I would say it sucks for them.
What do you think about? Do you think about? Have any thoughts about the move of All Out, Tony?
I am pretty much down for that. I thought that one of the biggest problems last year was that they pretty much just had one show, and then the next week we're like, all right, and here's a couple more matches we're going to put on the other one. So maybe if they've got a couple more weeks, it might just be enough to be able to build something more. Or it might actually be worse, to be honest, because maybe that's going to make them think that they can. And instead, all it's going to mean is that some of the matches that they were going to do for All In are going to stretch a little bit longer, and it's going to be like an extra week's worth of kind of a pointless episode of Dynamite. It's hard to tell, but I do think that there's a possibility that it's benefit. I'm down for it to be on Saturday too, rather than Sunday.
Boo.
So, I'm happy for it to be on Saturday. I want all wrestling shows that I want to watch to be on a Saturday, so I don't have to book time off work to watch them.
That is fair.
Fortunately, Double or Nothing is on Sunday night. It's bank holiday weekend for us over in the UK, so I can watch that without having to book any time off work.
Yeah, same over here for Americans with Memorial Day. And I think that's why it's a great tradition. I'm more okay with them potentially moving venues. I'd like to see them get the hell out of Chicago for All Out. Just because they go to Chicago so much. Like, go run New York. Serious question. Why haven't they tried to run the freaking Garden? It's the Garden.
I think they'd be worried about the attendance stuff now.
Yeah, maybe now, yes.
They should have probably done it in the past. I think they probably would have intended to do it in the past, but like COVID stuff gets in the way, and then they built up the relationship with Arthur Ashe, and that's kind of their New York home from that point on, really.
That's also very fair. But yeah, I think overall good move.
But this is also like clicked in my head that I remember something that I was going to put onto my list of things, and I forgot to put down, and now I'm going to talk about. I assume we're talking about the same thing then. So it's another event that has had its dates changed, or at least it's had one more date added to it. I presume that's the one you were talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes. So SummerSlam is now a 2-night event.
Not yet.
It will be.
Not yet. So
next year's one.
Nope. Well, presumably, but this is. They've announced that WWE is heading to Minneapolis for SummerSlam on Saturday, August 1st and Sunday, August 2nd in 2026.
Right.
So not even next year. So there is room to think that maybe next year could be a one-night event still. At this point, I've said this to a few people, and I'll say it on here. My prediction is next year they're doing 2 nights in Brooklyn.
So SummerSlam is now becoming. They have always said it's like it's the summer's equivalent of WrestleMania, and so now they're going to give it equivalent nights in terms of like a 2-night event. So a lot of things to kind of unpack here with this one as well. So we know that there's a very stringent approach now, or at least there seems to be a stringent approach in terms of Triple H's booking of A-level pay-per-views and B-level pay-per-views. The B-level pay-per-views, as Tony has mentioned quite a few times, they're basically in your house shows. They're 5-6 matches, usually like usually just a mix of title matches, usually pretty predictable by the numbers stuff. And then you have the big shows. Like I would say the big shows for WWE now are your WrestleManias, obviously, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble. Maybe Survivor Series. Like Survivor Series has always been on the kind of cusp of things with the War Game stuff. I would say Money in the Bank is a bigger deal than that, but
I would too.
But then you have these, and then obviously every other show is mostly international shows nowadays. We've just had Backlash in France. We're gonna have this Saudi Arabia show, another Saudi Arabia show later in the year, and then Bash in Berlin as well.
Clash at the Castle.
Yeah, Clash at the Castle. And so they do a lot of more international stuff, which are basically where they do these B shows, where basically the crowd is just excited for them to be there in the first place. So they just put out a pretty lackluster card for the most part. Some exciting matches and some stars on it. But realistically, it's not like this blockbuster, like X number of matches. And you're going to be watching a show that's got, well, at least as someone who won't be going to the show live, you're going to be watching half as many adverts as you are actual matches. But a 2-night SummerSlam, is that a little overkill?
Yeah. Okay. Like, I just want to say, I have no qualms about saying this at all. I don't buy into the idea just because, but it's great. We're having great business. That doesn't mean that overkill isn't a thing. That doesn't mean that burnout isn't a thing. I don't like the 2-night WrestleMania format. Never really got behind it. I think this year's was the most interesting in a booking perspective because you had 2 main events that really played into one another. But in years past, I've been very open on this podcast about saying they're lying to you. They took 1 7-hour show and created 2 7-hour shows, and they're not even really giving opportunities to a bunch of people who deserve them. If you're going to do a show 2 nights, I'd rather you do the Royal Rumble. That way, each Rumble match gets a night to shine and you don't feel overkill like you're seeing the same spots. I see no reason to do SummerSlam for 2 nights. This is just you being like, I want to milk all the money I can out of the city of Minneapolis. This is a give back to Minneapolis because they were going to get Mania for next year, but instead they'll get SummerSlam 2 years from now, which I don't understand the trade-off. I don't like it. I want to see less of these 2-night events. I think just like other things have convinced new generations of fans that this is the way to go, I don't know if you should instill this as being the way to present your wrestling. One-night Manias are fine. One-night SummerSlams are more than fine. And by the way, if you're going to do 2-night SummerSlam, go to a place that's got a freaking beach. Go to a place where you can have like a summer good time in the summer. You go to Minneapolis. Go somewhere else. Go somewhere fun. No offense to people in Minneapolis.
So, I mean, I'm not keen on the 2-night thing, but as someone who doesn't typically watch WWE pay-per-views anymore, that's not really going to affect me too much. I can understand the business rationale behind it. It means they can say that they sold X number of tickets because it happened over 2 nights instead of one.
Yeah, but it's
but the thing is that they're going it by the rationale, at least of the moment, that WWE is super hot right now, which it is, and it's selling lots of tickets. But they are starting to show at least initial signs of curtailing in certain markets. The ratings are starting to decline again. So there is at least signals of a potential decline. I know it's obviously the sports season. Everyone's doing bad in the ratings compared to what's happening with the NBA and the NHL and all that stuff before the summer when everything picks up, and then football season destroys everything again. But other than that, they're predicting that they're going to maintain this level of momentum going 2 years into the future. If the Minneapolis one is the first time they do this 2-night SummerSlam thing, we don't know where WWE is going to be, or where pro wrestling in general, in terms of its popularity and enthusiasm for it, is going to be by that point in time. So by that time, they might, I would say they're going to struggle to sell tickets. Of course they won't, but it might just be a little bit tougher to convince people to come out for 2 nights of this stuff. So yeah, there's that aspect of it.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I don't like about it. You really assume that people will just, WWE's on the marquee, so you're gonna buy tickets. And I would rather have a product that's more focused on, hey, let's create the best thing we can, and then let's make sure that people will come out to it. It's backwards right now, and I want to see a reversion back to what I think it should be.
The other side of that, obviously, being that, just speaking from my own personal experience, I find the current iteration of WWE pay-per-views a chore to sit through. I think they're just too inflated with peripheral content and advertising beyond the actual matches, and the matches are it almost feels like watching a show, and I know this isn't the case, and maybe it is like over exaggerating, but it almost feels like the wrestling matches are interrupting the advertising more than the advertising is interrupting the wrestling. So
it's starting to become that way, though, and that's, look, I agree from a business perspective. When Nick Khan says something like, "Hey, they left a lot of money on the table in terms of marketing space. Look at all these, spots for individual advertising. Look at the ring mat. Look at the LED boards." Yes, I agree with you. But it does come to a point where someone like you, Callum, watched Elimination Chamber and you're like, okay, enough, done, enough of this. Because it really does become, wait, why has there been 30 minutes in between matches and this is only a 4-match show? It's you gotta have some balance.
And that's what leads to people doing things like what they did with cable, because I've gone down this rabbit hole before. You used to pay for cable so that there weren't advertisements. And then they decided to add commercials. And then they decided to add those little bugs on the screen where it would pop up and it would be like covering the bottom lower third would be this whole advertisement for, like, I don't know, you're watching Survivor and it says like Cutthroat Island or whatever the fuck. I don't know what other shows there are. This graphics, like the big water splash is popping up on the screen and you're like, all right, now you're actually covering the show I want to watch. And then you've got product placement inside of that. And then your half-hour show is actually 21 minutes long because you've got 9 minutes of commercials. And then, you get to a point where you just go, I guess I'm just going to watch a torrent where somebody took all those 9 minutes of commercials out, and I don't have to worry about that anymore. And people are going to watch something like King and Queen of the Ring tomorrow. This shit's listed as being 7 hours long.
That's unnecessary.
That's what it says on Peacock.
For now a 6-match card, as we'll talk about when we get to the updates for it.
And it says that it's going to start at 11 with the countdown, but that the pay-per-view is going to actually start at 1. So that means that
2-hour kickoff.
A 2-hour kickoff for a Saudi show?
There's a 2-hour kickoff for the Saudi show that has one match on it, and then you would assume to talk about the 5 other matches, even if you gave that 10 minutes each, you're not covering the full hour of a 2-hour thing, which means, are we going to get an hour of how great Saudi Arabia is, and then we're going to get a 5-hour show for 5 matches that will also do these commercials?
And tell us how great Saudi Arabia is
tell us
between all the matches.
It's going to be fucking brutal tomorrow.
I mean, I anticipate a 2-night SummerSlam is going to be essentially what Triple H's approach is. Because Triple H has shown, I mean, we've seen it throughout his tenure in NXT and now moving on to this, he realistically only wants to do 5 to 7 matches on any pay-per-view card. So he's pretty much just going to say, okay, SummerSlam, we can build up X number of matches, but then split it over 2 nights because my brain can't compute like 10 matches or more on a show. So it's like, I just think this is going to almost be like you said, Rob. It's going to be a 7-hour show split into 2 less weighty 7-hour shows on both nights of that. But that's the way that they approach things. And don't get me wrong, there's obvious benefits to that than the AEW approach of you're going to have to sit down for 5-6 hours and watch like 10, 11 straight matches. So I understand the issues people have with both sides of things. But I think that, just having another 2-night show, it's like one show a year, WrestleMania, 2 nights. It's the biggest show of your calendar year. Do it over across 2 nights, totally fine. SummerSlam as well, now you're getting to the point of overexposure and just stretching things out too thin. Because if that goes well, next is the Royal Rumble. After that, Survivor Series. The Royal Rumble, one night's going to be headlined by the Men's Royal Rumble, one night's going to be headlined by the Women's Royal Rumble. Then at that point, you've got Survivor Series. One's going to be War Games, one's going to be traditional Survivor Series. Money in the Bank, you've got 2 different types of Money in the Bank. You've got women's and men's as well. You can split that 2 nights. King and Queen of the Ring, do the King of the Ring tournament on one night, Queen of the Ring on the other night. They're going to find ways to extend every single aspect of their, if they feel like it's profitable. So just hopefully it's not, but I would anticipate that this is a vision for what the future of WWE's PLE content looks like.
Get ready for WWE back and then WWE Lash.
I don't want to. No.
Headlined by Lash Legend, yeah.
I mean,
and the back show's headlined by Raquel Rodriguez, obviously.
Very clear. Listen, that's your evolution too. We just figured it out.
So that's the stuff about SummerSlam. I've only got a few little bits pieces before we get into stuff about updates to King and Queen of the Ring, updates to Double or Nothing, and TV reports. Sting's son is apparently learning how to wrestle.
Yes.
So this is Steve Borden Jr., right?
Yes. As revealed by Darby Allin's interview with Sean Ross Sapp, Stephen Borden is literally in a tent, sleeping in a tent in front of Darby's house, and he's learning how to wrestle with Darby. It's pretty exciting that one of Sting's sons has actually decided to carry on the legacy, and I hope he does great. Obviously, we had fun watching what they did at Revolution, but I'm excited to see where this goes and what he can bring to the next generation.
So, Steve, how old is do we know how old Steve Borden Jr. is?
So Sting's
65.
He was a football player. He committed to, I want to say, the University of Kentucky in around 2012 or 2013. So I believe that would put him around the 28 to 31 age range.
Yeah. So not super old, but it's like by general standards, it's a late starter in the wrestling world. I'm not saying that obviously. I mean, DDP didn't start wrestling until he was 35, so it's not like he can't be done. You can't be a big star off the back of it, but it is. You're setting yourself up to a certain level in that regard if you're just trying out doing it. I mean, Darby Allin training you as well, that's like a recipe. That could be a potential recipe for disaster as well, depending on how he's going to approach things. But hopefully it's interesting. It'd be good to see. I wonder what name he'll go by, where he'll just go with Steve Borden, but he won't try and take on like the Sting moniker.
No, I think you got to do something akin to Sting.
Call him Pinch or something.
Well, he can't just be the Police, but do something with like. I was trying to think, what's the Blade Runner name that Sting used? Was it Rock? You could probably get called Rock.
I think Rock was Ultimate Warriors one.
But definitely a one name thing and some face paint that's unique to him. But I think that would be the way to go for Sting.
I'm looking for some synonyms of Sting. So he could be Prick.
Well, hopefully not.
Nip, bite, wound.
Coming to the ring, it's bye.
Yeah, I mean, let's see how it goes. Like, it's obviously big shoes to fill. Stung instead. Maybe he's just Sting with 2 G's, or Sting with a JR at the end instead of Sting Jr. or Stinger, but it's instead of like
JR,
spelled like that, it's JR at the end of it. Yeah,
I kind of like that.
But yeah, we'll see how it goes for him. Hopefully we'll be able to hear back from him in a few months' time and see like, oh, maybe he's got his wrestling matches on Rampage or Collision or Ring of Honor or something.
If he's not good, they make him go by the name Stink.
Stink, you're wrong. That's AJ Styles used to, whenever he was doing promos about Sting in TNA, he always pronounced it Stink.
Stink?
Yeah.
That's
put a bit of a Georgian twang on things, yeah. Then the only other thing that I have outside of the report stuff is something that I would have gone a little bit of a rant about, and it does relate to King and Queen of the Ring. So we'll parlay this into the actual discussion of the show and the updates to it based on what happened on SmackDown and other things that have taken place. But so there were some photos that WWE and also some of the wrestlers posted online, primarily on Instagram this week, of a few of the WWE wrestlers, people like Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, Mia Yim, people of that ilk, all like in bikinis, enjoying their time on a private beach in Saudi Arabia, and then talk about how wonderful the experience was and thanking the people for setting them up here and giving them the opportunity to do all this. And, in 99% of environments, this would just be totally fine, little filler stuff. It's like, okay, they're just out there having fun. Good for them. Saudi Arabia, as we know, and should always remind ourselves of, is a place where particularly the rights of women are very heavily subjugated by the culture that they live in. Whereas they were on a private beach where they were allowed to do this, whereas if they were on a public beach a mile or so down the road, they would be arrested, persecuted, potentially killed over taking photographs like this. And it's all about this whole sport washing dynamic that is plaguing not just pro wrestling, but every aspect of sport, media, everything along those lines. The fact that Saudi Arabia have shit tons of money because they have shit tons of oil, and that they are utilizing this in order to fund many different types of sport, because sport is a cultural phenomenon that people get behind their team. They don't question where the money is coming from. They don't question anything of that ilk. As long as they are being successful in sports and doing good stuff, that people will buy into it and not care about any of the outside influences to this. So I'm not questioning the integrity or the morals of the people posting this photo, or the people posing for these photos. I am questioning that how much is too much money to essentially like allow yourself to be part of this narrative that is being created, this to allow yourself to be photographed doing something that the actual women who live in the country where you are taking place in this could not do this in a million billion years, or at least. And yeah, okay, they can drive a little bit now. Real progress is being made, obviously, because they tell us that and they advertise that stuff because that's what they're told to do by the people paying them their blood money. But to be like, is it willfully ignorant? Is it like, you know that this is bad? Do they know when they're posting this stuff, or that they're putting these posts out there? So like, maybe this is pretty bad, or do they just not know, or they just not care? That's kind of the overarching thing. Like, is it they don't know, or they don't care, or they don't think it's that bad? That's basically the different avenues of this, because it just feels so morally bankrupt, this approach that if you have enough money, you can do whatever you want. And that's just like a general rule that people have to abide by. But it just, seeing those photos in particular, it's already bad enough they have to be there and they get paid it. But, it's a shit ton of money. What would I do for that amount of money? Who knows? And it will never happen. But if I ever had the opportunity, I'd find out how desperate I was to have that amount of money, and we'll find out all that stuff. But because I could be on the outside looking into it, and these people are already multi-millionaires already, going to have more money than I'm ever going to know what to do with anyway. But the fact that they are willing to do this stuff, or willing to just go along for the ride, just makes me feel like, won't one of you stand up and just say, no, this is bullshit? I don't know. Maybe that's obviously just at this point, like however many years into the relationship with Saudi Arabia, that's probably just like well too far into advance now. But I just don't think that they can truly believe that they're making meaningful change in that country by doing this stuff. They're just making a shit ton of money doing it, and just either acknowledging what's going on and simply ignoring it, or being willfully ignorant to the whole thing. So, I don't want to go on like a rant or like shout and scream about all this stuff, but it is just, I find it just very, very disheartening and disappointing that it's so blatantly, I'd say like transparent, or blatantly like opaque, how little care or thought is going into stuff like this.
I echo everything you're saying, and at the same time say, if somebody from Saudi Arabia wants to sponsor a Smark Out Moment to see how low I can go, I am willing to find out what this experiment has to say.
You touched on wonderful points there, and by the way, yes, I agree with everything you say, but you mentioned, do they think they're making a difference? Do they not know? And I genuinely wonder that in this case, because I wonder if somebody like Bianca's looking at it and going, wow, isn't it amazing that like I can come over here to Saudi Arabia and these fans are going crazy and we're really helping bring change. I wonder how much of that they do buy into,
I don't know how much they really know what happens in that country. And it wouldn't and I don't blame them for that, realistically. I know that you can do research, you can find out this stuff, but they're not beholden to do so. But it's more of a case of the Saudi Arabia they experience is not the Saudi Arabia that is lived by the majority of the population. In the same way that when I go back in the past and talk about the Qatari World Cup that took place a few years back, people would go there and they would be touring the country and seeing stadiums. So this is it's actually quite nice, and the people are quite nice and friendly, and there's interesting experience and culture and stuff there. But it's but that's what they want to expose you to. You're getting the experience that they've tailored for you. It's not the experience of the people within the actual country itself, and the subjugation, the persecution, and the danger that they live in day after day. And as I can't speak for the people who live in Saudi Arabia. I don't know what their experience is. I could not fathom living a day in their shoes. I can read about it, I can research it, and I can find this stuff out, and I can know how challenging it must be for a lot of them, how vastly different it is to the lives that we live, both in positive and negative ways. But it's just seeing such a filtered, like just basically putting Saudi Arabia through an Instagram filter, just seeing what you want to see out of it, and ignoring all the bad stuff, like throwing off the people being regularly arrested and persecuted and executed for minor crimes, and not even crimes, fucking being gay, or for being or for showing skin or anything along those lines. It's like that sort of stuff. We can't just throw away, use photos like this or use experiences like this and use that as an idea of it's not as bad as you think it is. Fuck off. It is as bad. You're just hiding it. You're just doing a good job concealing it.
And the same could be said for, but on a much smaller scale. We're talking about something like Saudi Arabia, but the America that some people experience isn't the America that everybody experiences. And sometimes when you're just not educated to it, you're not as quick to second guess yourself and feel, I don't know if shame would be the right word, but guilt, and it's just an interesting thing to think about. How much do they really know?
Yeah. So basically the overarching thing of it, I do not want to draw hatred towards the people that are involved in these photos. It's like, I would want them to think about the repercussions of what they're doing, potentially. Just because I don't think the people that posted it are bad people. I don't think that they're laughing at the misfortune of the people that they are able to do things that others in the country are not. I don't think that they're reveling in it. I don't think they know every single detail of what's happening and are just going along with it because they think this is the right thing to do. I just would hope that this incident is criticised in the right way, which is to get people to think a little bit more about the experience of people who are less fortunate than they are in that circumstance. That's just the hope moving forward. And, it's said in hope rather than expectation, but the hope needs to be out there. So, with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the show that's actually taking place in that disgusting, awful country.
I will say this might end up being the thumbnail just for me to try to exploit that for views.
Good. It's a photo of really attractive women in a bikini on a beach in Saudi Arabia as well. So it's hopefully
everywhere.
Yeah.
Take that, YouTube algorithm.
Yeah. Hopefully the moral rant has overcome the fact that any other place would just be good clickbait material. But let's talk about King and Queen of the Ring. So SmackDown has happened in the beautiful city of Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, and they've got some spoilers from that show. So match results. If you don't want to know the SmackDown spoilers, if you've already read them because you're listening to this after the fact, then don't really matter too much. But just so you're aware, we're going to say spoilers for the show that took place on SmackDown, May 24th, 2024. And here we go. So Queen of the Ring semi-finals and King of the Ring semi-finals, we found out our winners, as expected, or at least what we predicted, based on our King Queen of the Ring predictions. Nia Jax defeated Bianca Belair to advance to the finals, where she'll face Lyra Valkyria clean. She beat her clean, which I think is the most surprising thing out of all of that. She just pinned Bianca in the ring. Hit her move, hit the Annihilator, and pinned her.
Yeah, that was a nasty Annihilator.
It looked like she fell quite heavily on that one. Yeah.
Yes, sir. But that was the ending I about expected. They built this up nicely with the knee injury angle, and you knew that they were going to try to go for the KOD. But I think that was a great reason to not get there and have Nia Jax win. And now she will go on to, and she used this word about 5 times in her promo, she's going to buzz right through Lyra Valkyria and then go on to SummerSlam, where she's going to buzz through Bayley and become the women's champion. Because, by the way, the winners of the tournaments will get world title shots at SummerSlam.
Yeah,
that in and of itself is extremely weird, because why would you advertise that they're going to get that title shot in 2 pay-per-views from now?
Because it's a weird kind of tradition, but not really, except for the last pay-per-view tournament where the winner of the King of the Ring does get a world title shot at SummerSlam.
Yeah, I mean that was the pre-established one, probably for it wasn't like fully followed through on all the time, but obviously that's how Mabel got his famous title shot. Infamous,
right,
probably.
It was straight up announced for Lesnar, and it was proven with Owen, Mabel, and it was the original plan for Hunter until the curtain call.
Yeah, so I get it. It's like it's similar to a WrestleMania type or Royal Rumble to WrestleMania type thing. There's shows in between that as well. So we're gonna have another like a match at like King of the Ring, but it's interesting about how that would play into things depending on what the results would be. Because the King of the Ring semi-final was Randy Orton defeated Tama Tonga, so he's going to be facing Gunther. And now I'm a little bit 50-50 about Gunther and Randy Orton.
Yeah.
Because it does immediately spring to mind that, oh yeah, Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship at SummerSlam. That kind of fits.
Sounds kind of nice, doesn't it?
Whereas Gunther against either Drew McIntyre or Damian Priest doesn't fit.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
So they could just have Randy Orton beat Gunther. And to be fair, Gunther is not infallible. He lost to Sami Zayn at WrestleMania. So they haven't booked him as undefeatable. So he can just lose to Randy Orton. Randy Orton's a multi-time, 14-time world champion. So losing to him is no shame. And he's obviously a big star in Saudi Arabia because he's such an established name and a big star everywhere, but he does get really big reactions in Saudi Arabia in particular. So him pinning Gunther could make a lot of sense and set the wheels in motion for that match with Cody. Because the Gunther thing, Gunther has to beat somebody for the world championship eventually. He's going to be world champion eventually, but it doesn't feel like the guys that are battling for that title really fit, because we would presume that if what happens in that, let's say McIntyre does face Damian Priest for the title at Clash at the Castle, wins the title there, then you would presume the match at SummerSlam would be, if he's available, CM Punk. And if not, it would at least be a babyface. Whereas Gunther is neither of those things. He's neither CM Punk nor babyface.
Money in the Bank happens in between. And that's even weirder, is that you got Clash and you've got Money in the Bank. So I am a little bit curious if they are just going to go with King Randy Orton, which is kind of weird. But I could see a scenario where Drew McIntyre gets screwed over at Clash at the Castle from CM Punk. Money in the Bank is Finn Balor against Damian Priest. And they do plan to have Gunther be the guy that beats Damian Priest. And by then, Priest is babyface before the Finn Balor feud. If not even already by the Drew McIntyre feud. And Punk and Drew McIntyre is just a non-title match.
Yeah, I think that would be a mistake.
I think that all of this sounds weird.
I'm not as... First of all, I'll say this. I'm not down on the idea of the winners of the tournament getting title shots at SummerSlam. I think everything should have stakes. I think that's the only way any of this makes sense. And I'm fine with that. It's just... Like Callum says, it immediately gives you a 50-50 mindset. And it's not because Gunther would be a bad king or Randy would be a bad king or, it would be weird for him to fight Cody. It's because the Raw roster sucks. And if Gunther wins, you're sort of like, yeah, you could turn Priest babyface. And it does feel like that's where they're going. But does anyone want to see Gunther versus Priest for the World Championship? Again, you have the ultimate opportunity right now to put this belt on par with the other belt. Cody is just an average champion right now, in terms of what he's doing with the title. You have the opportunity to make these titles neck and neck. I wish the Raw side was a little stronger.
So yeah, we'll kind of see how it goes. I think that it's at least added a bit more jeopardy to the King of the Ring one. Queen of the Ring, I think it's just made it doubly obvious that Nia Jax is winning.
Oh yeah, like I said to Tony when Raw happened, I sent him a picture of Mabel, and I said, well, they're just gonna do a Mabel run with Nia Jax, probably down to the entrance with the throne and everything. Like,
even that's weird though, because it's like Nia Jax versus Bayley. You're gonna wait 2.5 months, and that's the big thing you're gonna build to. Like, I don't give a shit about that.
Well, your other option then is Liv Morgan or Becky Lynch or Rhea Ripley, whoever, against Lyra Valkyria.
And that's weird too.
And Lyra versus Liv, you don't need to wait 2 months for.
That would make more sense at Clash at the Castle, I would think, or Money in the Bank. And to do, even if you do like a little stretch and it's like, Becky retains and then they have another match with Liv at Clash and then something else or whatever at Money in the Bank. Like, I don't know if I want to wait 2.5 months to try to build up Lyra to make it seem like she's a big enough star for SummerSlam. None of this feels like this is SummerSlam worthy. This feels like it all should be going down at Money in the Bank, at least.
But that's part of the problem. And this is something I've been feeling throughout most of this year, where I think we end up screwing ourselves with the mentality of, well, it has to be worthy of this, and it has to be in the vein of this. Nia versus Bayley at SummerSlam, with Nia having an extra couple months to just continue, not only, going after Bayley, but whomever may challenge Bayley. Where Nia's waiting at SummerSlam. Like, that's happening. And then I think Nia does get by Bayley. She's in this complete, I'm the queen, I'm the champ. Then for the fall, you run the feud with Bianca, or maybe even Bianca and Jade. That eventually culminates with Bianca lift, slam Nia at some point, and then you're on the road to Bianca Charlotte at WrestleMania. That's so, like, Nia, to me, it's like, okay, I see where you're going. Even if you flip that and you have Charlotte come back and beat Nia, you're on the road to Charlotte Bianca at Mania. That's what you're doing. With the men, it's sort of like, maybe Randy should win just to, okay, you got Randy and Cody at SummerSlam. That's the match. It'll be fun. It's what we're waiting for. But Gunther seems tailor-made for the King of the Ring. Very interesting spot we're in.
On top of that stuff, so now we have those matches set in stone, and we can think a little bit about once we obviously settle internally our decisions for the matches, our predictions for it, so we can then decide on that for the fantasy league purposes. But then another match has also been added, which will be on the kickoff show. So it's going to be Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, now no longer part of the Queen of the Ring tournament, defending their tag team championships against Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell. This is probably one of the most predictable matches of all time. Like, there's no way that Bianca and Jade are dropping those titles to a team that only really loses matches. So I've got to go with the champions retaining on this one. Just a hunch.
I gotta tell you, I say this a lot when it comes to Candice, but it's insane that this woman is so good. Could have been arguably one of the linchpins of the Revolution had they signed her sooner. And she just shows up and loses things. It's terrible. You couldn't put her against anyone. For God's sake, Shayna and Zoe just won a tag title shot. Put them against them. Like, why are you doing this to Candice and Indy?
So you're saying Candice and Indy win?
I think that's exactly, everybody gets, that's exactly what I'm saying. Now, obviously, Jade and Bianca are going to win, and they might do it in record time, honestly.
Well, it's not like you have 7 hours to do that, right?
Not in a Jade Cargill match. That 7 seconds is probably the most. It's probably the most you can get out of that.
He's not wrong, Tony. The quicker, the better for this, on all accounts at this point, because Indy's not seen as a threat, and she's never really been known for going long. Candice isn't seen as a threat, and Bianca's teasing or keeping kayfabe with a knee injury. So shorter the better here. Now, is this the match that's on the kickoff?
Yeah. There's only been one more match added. That's the only new match added to the show.
Crazy because Bianca to me is John Cena level, and I get why she's doing this run. I just don't think she's kickoff. Like she should be always toward the top of the card.
And then the other things that took place on SmackDown, just continuing the spoilers here. So there was a Grayson Waller effect segment where Carmelo Hayes basically cemented the fact that he's turning heel. So he just kind of started that last week when he was like talking to LA Knight backstage, and then had the match with Randy Orton where he was basically being too cocky and slapping him on the back of the head and then eventually losing. So he had the thing with going to like a verbal exchange with LA Knight, and then it ended up being LA Knight and the Street Profits defeated A-Town Down Under and Carmelo Hayes. So that's like the tag champions, and Carmelo Hayes losing to the baby faces. I think it feels like the pride is done.
Well, Lashley's legit hurt, right? So that's probably the reason for that.
And they're baby faces again, just straight baby faces.
The interesting thing here to me, in ways that I didn't necessarily like, was watching Mello and A-Town Down Under kind of target not only LA Knight, but Lashley and Corbin as like, these old guys, they need to step aside. I wasn't really feeling it because it's kind of a hodgepodge of three on the other side. As you see, like neither Corbin nor Lashley showed up to LA Knight. It was the Street Profits. And I like that the Street Profits got the win here. I think they should be winning the tag titles soon. I'd throw that on the pay-per-view, honestly. And after this, there was a promo with DIY. So at least, I'll say this, at least tag teams are doing things on the show, and the belts feel kind of important, or as important as they can in the modern landscape, without them being unified and held by Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. So that's positive, I would say.
And then the other thing for the show, the major thing from the show, I know there are a few of its pieces, like AJ Styles won a title shot. Nick Aldis said no.
That I think is interesting, and I don't know if it's how it's written on what you're reading, but the big takeaway from that is Nick Aldis said, AJ, I think you're the best, but it takes time. And AJ said, I don't have time. So they're kind of planting the seeds towards AJ being a lot closer to done than he is an active member of the roster. And I think that's a special storyline for AJ Styles.
And then the other match on the show was Bayley defeated Chelsea Green, which you would expect.
That was exactly what you would expect.
Was there any involvement with Piper Niven?
Piper Niven did attack Bayley after the match and left her laying.
Right, so that's your Clash of the Castle match.
That is is Clash of the Castle immediately after King Queen?
Yeah, that's the June one, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. So I assume
then
it's
Money in the Bank.
I assume it's a handicap match with the bulk being on Piper, but Chelsea being Chelsea and getting in her own way. But yeah, we called it when Bayley won the belt. We were like, oh, they'll probably do this, and they're doing it.
So that was SmackDown. Just let's go a little bit further back to talk. Is there anything else from SmackDown you want to go to it?
Well, yeah, because there's also the idea that they had advertised Tonga Loa and Solo Sikoa against Street Profits, and obviously the Street Profits did not do that because there was a backstage promo where Paul Heyman's trying to talk to Solo, saying Tonga Loa couldn't even get into Saudi Arabia. You're bringing dangerous people into this group. They run background checks, and we couldn't even get him here. Like, you have to be careful what you're doing. And Tama Tonga is so dangerous, and then Tama Tonga scared the shit out of Heyman and said that he was brought into the bloodline because he's dangerous. and he said the Bloodline is going to get another king, obviously reference to Haku, but I think that that's planting the seeds for Jacob Fatu, because the news on him has always been they never went for him because of some prior experiences in his life, leading to some background check danger. I think it's great. I think this new iteration of the Bloodline has been a lot of fun to watch for him, and one of my more favorite segments on the show.
Okay, then. So then we'll go back a little bit to... I mean, we talked about most of the big things that happened on Raw because they all kind of feed into King and Queen of the Ring. There was a couple of little things like Bron Breakker killed a guy.
He did. Bron Breakker killed a guy. Poor Kale Dixon of NXT Level Up fame is just... he's no more. Bron Breakker just run right through him.
Yeah, the Awesome Truth are still tag champions by defeating Judgment Day. Yeah, this sucks. I say, like, a guy that's not really watching, like, doesn't bother me really, but like, surely there's one better tag team than the Awesome Truth.
And they know that there is. The funniest thing about this whole segment was that R-Truth had said that he talked to Andre the Giant, and that he would have his back against the Judgment Day, and of course that ended up being Strowman. Haha, Strowman's big.
And not a lot of people, unlike Bubba Day, aren't.
Not a lot of people are now.
Even that, though, we were just talking about the whole Damian Priest thing. They keep building up this idea that Braun Strowman's going to have a match with Damian Priest. If we're talking about, okay, well, we got Drew McIntyre for Clash. We got the Finn Balor thing. We got the Gunther thing. Where does Braun Strowman come in there?
Episode of Raw.
Yeah, you run around episode of Raw, and that's your potential debut of the Wyatt group.
I'm so over that.
Yeah, can we? Look, I haven't seen the QR codes. I don't bother scanning them. I typically.
You haven't watched the latest Twitch stream with stuff coming?
No, that stuff is very like. These are like 50-minute Twitch streams. What the fuck is going on? This doesn't translate to TV. It just, look, I get it. I get that we're trying to honor Bray and we're trying to do something cool. And it's interesting that WWE is letting them do it. But how does this translate to television? To eventually getting in the ring and wrestling?
Oh, but that doesn't matter in WWE. But yeah, that's mainly the things happening in Raw outside of the stuff we've already talked about for King and Queen of the Ring. NXT, my favorite show, obviously.
NXT this week was a solid show. Fallon Henley advanced to the ladder match. Jada Parker advances to the ladder match.
You lost Thea Hale out of that. You upset that she can't be Women's North American Champion?
I'm not as upset because there's Sol Ruca and there's Jada Parker. And I just assume it's going to be one of them. And they can set the tone for this new championship. I think Parker's got a good shot, honestly. And I'm kind of hoping that she does win it. There was also the Shayna Baszler and Lola Vice lost to Natalya and Carmen Petrovic. And afterwards, Lola Vice knocked out Shayna Baszler and shook her ass for like 2 straight minutes of just shaking her ass until Baszler rises up like the Undertaker, starts choking her out. They fight. They're going to be in an NXT Underground match on the pay-per-view. I'm excited for that just because I think Lola Vice is hysterical. The fact that like her whole thing is just, you can't tell me to stop shaking my ass. And that is why she decided to pick a fight with a legit MMA badass. And I mean, Valerie Loreto, Lola Vice is no slouch there, but Shayna Baszler, I just wouldn't mess with her in any fictional or real situation. What else happened on this show?
So apparently Gallus were all over it.
Yeah, okay, yes, because they came back last week and they took out Ivar, so this led to Joe Coffey taking Ivar's spot in the 3-way to determine Obafemi's next opponent. And we get another double pin situation where Obafemi gets into another triple threat where it'll be Wesley, Joe Coffey, and Obafemi for the North American title. The weird thing about that is Gallus was also really on Trick Williams, and it really felt like Joe Coffey was trying to signal for that title instead. So I don't know if they're going to just be around everything, and if it's just like, hey, Gallus is just going to wreck shit on NXT until they get suspended and go up to the main roster of Drew McIntyre's lackeys. But at least they're kind of breathing some fresh life into the show.
Why do you think Shawn Michaels is such a big fan of Gallus?
Oh, he loves Gallus. Like I remember covering an interview he did with Inside the Ropes where he straight up said Kaylee Ray and Gallus were his favorite NXT UK acts. And I think the fact that Shawn Michaels loves them because they're kind of all two players, and the fact that they trained The Rock for his WrestleMania match means Gallus is here for as long as Gallus wants to be here. You know, and they're fine. Like, they're a fine act. Joe Coffey's pretty good in the ring. But I would have never guessed that they would be so popular.
Well, they're not popular. They're popular with one guy. They're popular with one guy. And unfortunately, that's the one guy that books the show. So
well, I mean, they're popular with Michaels, and they're on the good graces of The Rock. And I don't know if you need two better people in your corner than Shawn Michaels and The Rock.
This also is like the weird thing, because obviously I didn't watch the show, but I've seen the results, and like this was so weird that on both NXT and Dynamite this week,
they did double.
There were two triple threat matches that had two winners in it.
Yeah,
it's like, are they reading the same shitty sheet of things to do in pro wrestling that should never be done? Just saying, hey, let's both do that at the same time. It's just, yeah, that sucked.
Yeah, and then I'm not a fan of the double pin, double submission thing, especially in the case of like the double pin wasn't really solid. It was just sort of like, well, this is where we need to go, so this is what we're doing.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why I have to convolute it. Like, why does Joe Coffey have to be involved when it's so obvious that the story is Wesley trying to win the battle, trying to win the title back against the giant Obafemi?
It makes me wonder if the plan is just to go with Coffey. Is that what you're shoehorning him in the match?
Coffee ruins everything.
Yeah. Are you more of a tea guy?
I'm not a hot drink guy.
Oh, interesting.
Not even iced tea?
Nah. His music ain't great either.
More of an ice cube then, right?
But
we
then
can keep this going for a while.
Yeah. More of a gang cue, actually. That's more I think. I have a big but I have a big question for both of you, because obviously you watch NXT. So, how long do you believe it's going to be before Dante Chen is the world champion?
Okay, so we have to talk about this, because I'm remembering now that we mentioned on the hot tags last week, or maybe even the week before, about the spoilers.
Because this is obviously like done in advance.
Where Dante, Tony and I were both like, Dante Chen got a big pop. They were not kidding. The place fucking blew when they saw that Dante Chen was coming out. I don't understand. I guess he was out with an injury. This place was genuinely over the moon that Dante Chen was in action. And he won. And I don't know. Robert Stone doesn't have a great track record. So I'm not expecting Dante Chen to get pushed too far. But if crowd reception is anything, that dude's over with that specific audience for some reason.
It makes no sense to me.
You saw it, you heard it as well, right? Like, loud pop.
It makes sense. Again, as a guy that doesn't watch it, it makes sense to me in the sense that because NXT's taking place always in the same building, so there are people that have probably seen him on Level Up and other shows just doing things and grinding, and so they were probably just excited that he got an opportunity to just be on the main show and do something notable after however many years just on the sidelines or on the periphery of things.
I mean, yeah, but still, the loud, the noise level was like unreal for a guy like Dante Chen.
And so, okay, with the WWE stuff kind of out of the way now, that just finishes off with a bit of a talk about Dynamite and what that's done to the Double or Nothing card. So, Dynamite this week. No, I can't say I was the biggest fan of Dynamite. I think this was a symptomatic show of the over-reliance on sports entertainment elements on Dynamite, which is kind of it's one of the biggest issues I have at the moment with AEW, and I still enjoy it and it's still a good show, but it's a case of there's so much they do that's so similar to what WWE does.
Yeah.
But there's so I've listened to a lot of podcasts talk about this as well, and I have to I don't want to just echo all their points, but they do make a lot of good points. It feels like AEW is lacking in identity right now.
Yes.
And it feels like it's just steering always in between the pro wrestling, every match is important approach, and then dives into, dumping red sludge over somebody and two people getting joint submissions in a triple threat match, and a guy challenge evil authority people against the good guy authority people, and a guy comes out using a flamethrower, and we're supposed to think that's cool rather than, why is he using a flamethrower? He's not actually going to go out there and kill someone, is he?
Well, okay. So you brought up the flamethrower already, and I'm just going to ask you, because you you go to work, you have a job. Would your boss ever drive you into the office and go
with a flamethrower and just
hey Cal, you got a flamethrower? Tremendous. Go use it. Like, holy shit.
It's a way to get heat. But
thank you, Tony. I tweeted Tony Khan that Hank Scorpio would be very proud of his leadership skills, and then the gif of Hank Scorpio with the flamethrower. Because
I said, don't get me wrong, but the blood angle with the blood hitting Malachi Black from Copeland, don't get me wrong, that was the best blood gunking angle that has ever happened in pro wrestling history. And to be fair, and the fact that I have to say that there have been many different versions of that over the years is one thing already. But that, literally, you go hard or you go home, and you decided, we're going to just pour like an entire blood bank's worth of stuff on top of Malachi Black. So kudos to them for going absolutely balls to the wall crazy with it. But it is just more kind of sports entertainment-y aspects of it. I say, you can do that from time to time. You can do like maybe one or two segments, but I feel like it was just littered all over this show. And some decent matches as well. There's always decent matches on Dynamite. You still had the Kyle O'Reilly and Malachi Black match that took place before that. Was a good match. Not much heat, but did well. The triple threat match was what it was. Nothing great. The tag match just to open the show was great. That's probably the best match on the card. They had Kanosuke just kill Matt Sydal, and Tony Storm and Mariah May making out with Saraya and Harley Cameron and beating them as a result of it. And then less said about the main event, the better. Because I thought they had something clever in mind when they decided to book Bryan Danielson versus Satnam Singh, but no, just a small guy versus a big guy that can't get knocked down, and eventually decide to have him lose by DQ because for some reason we need to protect Satnam Singh.
If Bryan Danielson wants to wrestle Satnam Singh on his birthday, are you going to tell him no? If that's hey buddy.
I think I wish more people told Bryan Danielson no. Said no, you are winning the world title. Fuck off. I don't care if you want to put this guy over again. You're winning this world championship because we want to have you on our record books. But there are a few bits and pieces. But the most interesting things that happened, and these link up directly into Double or Nothing. So the triple threat match is mentioned, which was Katsuyori Shibata versus Hook versus Brian Keith, ended up with both Shibata and Hook forcing Keith to tap out, which means that we're going to have a triple threat match for the World Championship between Hook, Shibata, and Jericho. So yeah, triple threat match instead. That's just reaffirmed my belief that Jericho's retaining.
Yep.
Because the other two will just get in each other's way.
Yep. And
absolutely.
He'll pin Shibata because he can.
And then the other match that's been announced for Double or Nothing, on top of what we'd already announced, is that we saw the reunion of Death Triangle on this show. And it hasn't been confirmed yet, because there's a match to take place in it. There's a match to take place that will influence it. But we can probably likely say that they're not even Bullet Club Gold now. They are officially the Bang Bang Gang.
I don't know how I feel about that, but yes, they are officially the Bang Bang Gang.
That is their name on the official AEW website, so that's what the faction name is now. And so they will take on Death Triangle for the Trios Championship at Double or Nothing. I imagine that will probably be the main event of the kickoff or the buy-in or 0 hour, whatever the fuck they call it. But either way, that should be a super fun match, and I think that they'll have. I would like to see Death Triangle win, just because I think we need to get into the era of the trio titles just being defended every week or every other week, and being lost and won by other teams regularly. It should just be a fun title that just changed hands every 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to win. I think I'd like to see.
I don't think so either.
Juice Robinson. Where the hell is Juice Robinson? And I'd like to see him come back, and I think it'll be a fun match, because how are you going to go wrong with the Bang Bang Gang and Death Triangle? And by the way, shout out to the Guns, who are they really came into their own with this group, and they're doing great.
Any thoughts on the match and who's going to win, Tony?
I'm assuming Bang Bang Gang retain. I don't think that they're going to have these titles unified and then drop them so quickly after. But Death Triangle, they're a good team to put that in jeopardy. And, the match is going to be good.
Yeah. So cool. So that's, so those are the updates to the Double or Nothing card. Obviously, the caveat being for that trios match is that on Collision, they're going to do a match between the Guns against Penta and Phoenix. So, but likely Penta and Phoenix are going to win that one, so just make sure of it. And so Double or Nothing outside of that is pretty much as we outlined it. So, depending on how things go, we'll see if
They'll
we'll be doing
some stuff to Rampage. They'll probably add some stuff too.
Oh yeah, but it'll just be 0 hour stuff, I'd say.
Right.
I think the full card is set now for the main show, so that's fine. Like I think it's about like 9-10 matches now. So yeah. That's depending on how things decide to go, doing potentially post shows for both King and Queen of the Ring and Double or Nothing, depending on circumstances, of course. But
I'll say, if I'm able to talk a little bit better than I am today, we'll probably at least have a half-hour long King and Queen of the Ring one. Might have to speed run it, but more than likely you can count on us having a post show tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, you're sounding way better than I thought you would be at this time.
I thought so too. I thought I'd be all the puffy chipmunk mode and in a lot of pain. But then again, I did get told that could get progressively bigger over time. So it could be the first, day is, whatever, but we'll see. But I'm incredibly thankful for these guys taking the reins on this episode. Thank you guys.
That's cool. It's good. It's a good opportunity to get our vocals to work, especially until when we know you'll do the same for us when our wisdom teeth go eventually.
If you guys need to do that, then absolutely. It's not honestly.
That would involve me going to a dentist, which is never going to happen.
I'll say it wasn't as bad as I expected it would be. So when I do the other half of my mouth, whenever that happens, then we'll revisit this again.
I will also say that I echo what Callum said. That would completely involve me actually wanting to go to a dentist, which just isn't going to happen.
Well, if Isaac Yankum is out there and he wants to sponsor this podcast as well.
I don't know if you want Isaac Yankum to sponsor your podcast.
I mean, depending on how much money he wants to spend.
That is fair.
Do you want to take care of the final plugs, and Tony, or do you want me to do it? Is your voice capable of shilling our shit?
I can shill. If you do want to sponsor this podcast in any way, the best way for you to do that is to hit up the Patreon or the YouTube channel membership. Even $1 a month is something that would go a great deal, especially the more people that do it. One of my philosophies is always that if everybody lifts with one finger, nobody has to lift with both their hands. And if we were to have the 4,000 plus people that are subscribed to this YouTube channel donate $1 a month, you wouldn't be seeing me stressed out as much. You would be getting way more content, way better content. Both Rob and Callum will be getting paid handsomely for all this as well. And we would all be having a good time, and the world would be better in the, every aspect, including.
And you'd be seeing a less stressed me in that case.
That would be the case too. Somehow that would affect McDonald's prices would probably go down. Target wouldn't be just now saying that they're lowering prices for some stupid ass reason. So consider that. Donate to the Patreon or the YouTube channel membership for the Darkcast, the Pick Your Poison tier, the thanks button. Obviously, if you are able to join us for the post-show things tomorrow and the next day, then the super chats will be available as well for that. And keep in mind, of course, Redbubble and TeePublic for picking up merchandise. Show your support in any way that you can for keeping Smark Out Moment around, because you never know when that might need to change. I've been alluding to this for quite a while. That could change in many different ways at almost any moment. And one of those is that we might be exploring a $5 a month hot tags tier, where the hot tags might move over to the Patreon as a means to try to keep that going. If you don't want that to be the case, consider donating $1 a month and saving a little bit of money there. But the Darkcast, of course, they are members only exclusive episodes. And keep in mind, you should be supporting Fanboys Anonymous as well, because it all goes back to the same thing. And anything under a mango tree that's out there, you can find at amangotree.com. Links to all sorts of different things there. Maybe some more links coming up soon. I am in the process of trying to work on a few other little things here. Can't really talk about them yet, but you might see some other profiles popping up there. And make sure that you are following me at Tony Mango. Make sure you're following Rob and Callum, of course.
Yep, you can follow me everywhere at Dude Felice. You can check out all my work on Fightful.com. Stay tuned to my social medias as well to see if I pop up anywhere else in the near future, because as we've been beating the drum of, we'd like to be less stressed, and one way to do that is more money. So, always keep that in mind, guys. But I will now toss you over to Callum Wiggins, who will talk about the Fantasy League.
Yeah, first of all, I'll direct you to Twitter to follow me at Weekmeister14, and then also to check out the Power Rankings, my week-to-week my article on the Smark Out website, where I rank the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances, which will be going up just before King and Queen of the Ring, so obviously won't contribute to it, but you can see how people have done in the lead up to King and Queen of the Ring. But then you can also check out the Fantasy League over at www.fantasyleague.com, because King of Queen of the Ring is the first kind of stop point for it. There'll be extra points on the line because of the extra weighting towards pay-per-view matches and results. But then also we will see the first switch-ups of our team. Someone will be kicked off of our teams depending on who want to decide to, who isn't pulling their weight, shall we say. And then the other caveat of that is we can switch people out as potentially as well. And also depending on the results of the predictions contest for King and Queen of the Ring, we might see some people getting bonus points added onto their teams. You could see if Tony wins because he won the first one, that means that he could be able to switch out multiple people from his team as well. So there's a lot of different caveats we can go through here. So King and Queen of the Ring is the first big, focal point for this year's season, so make sure you check out the Fantasy League to see how that show affects everything moving forward.
Okie dokie, everybody. Show your support for everything that we mentioned. Show your support for Rob and Callum for handling this episode. And hopefully show your support for Smark Out Moment and Fanboys Anonymous going forward, with the next thing being the King and Queen of the Ring post-show immediately following the pay-per-view, whenever that 7-hour-long thing ends. As I said, if I'm not able to do it, you won't see it pop up. If I am able to do it, then you'll get your email alerts if you have that set up. Might be a quick one. Probably is going to be a quicker one, I would say, more than likely. And, we'll address anything like that, but I'll be doing live coverage in article form for both Smark Out Moment and EWN. Same thing might apply to Double or Nothing. Still not sure about the post show. Probably will. Not entirely positive, but you'll see it pop up if it does. And you'll see anything else pop up in the meantime too. So just keep hanging around this space, and we will see you next time. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.